Hello, good evening, Kiora. Hello, guys. I'm back after a few days. I think we met last Thursday. We are back with one of the most special guests. I know I say that every time that I bring a guest along that we've got a special guest, but today we've got someone extra special. And I think this session is a bit extra special to my heart as well, because because of certain things that I'm going to tell you. So I'm bringing today Pablo Fernandez from AUT University, who's a regional manager. Pablo, welcome. Welcome to our session.
Oh, thank you, Arunima. A great pleasure being here with you and
Thank
with the
you.
audience. So now it's my pleasure. So
Thank you.
I'm here to help and looking forward to the session.
Yes, so we're going to have the next 40 minutes, hopefully, of rapid fire questions and trying to get to know a lot more about AUT University. Just to let you guys know that I know there's a lot of immigration questions that you've got. This session is a really unique opportunity for you to ask these questions to Pablo about AUT University, about the courses, the career outcomes. So, save your immigration sessions. You're more than welcome to type those comments in, and our team members will pick those comments up and they will respond to it. But I am going to pick up those live questions. For those of you that don't know, I actually came to New Zealand as an international student as well, and I studied at AUT University. So that's why AUT and this session is super special and very close to my heart. And I think, Pablo, you and I are both AUT alumni.
Yes, we are indeed. You came in 2004, I came in 2006, but yeah, I think we both came as international students.
That's right. And we've done pretty well. So that's what I tell people, that, make sensible choices with your courses and education provider. And if, I can do it, so can you. So we've got a pretty full session today. And Pablo, I'm just going to quickly introduce you. Now, we have only relatively very recently met. I'm very, very pleased that I have actually met you. I mean, not in person, which we will someday. But you've been in the tertiary sector for about 8 years now. That's right?
That's correct. That's correct.
And you've been with AUT in those.
I've been with AUT during all the time, 8 years. Working in different areas, from the Faculty of Business, Economics and Law, Brand and Marketing Services Division, in recruitment and marketing, and now, as well within AUT International, looking after the onshore market specifically, or onshore international students.
And you were just telling me that you also taught, isn't it? You've also been a tutor, and you've taught in the Faculty of Business as well?
I've taught a couple of papers, International Marketing Communications, level 7, so that's for third-year students, marketing management. I have not tutored, but also coached some students within the marketing, advertising, retail, and sales department. So now at AUT, students in the marketing major, they need to, in their last year, they complete a project. So they have to work in different areas, and AUT partners up, those students with mentors. So I've been a mentor for maybe 6 years now. So I'm quite passionate about, supporting students, and still very close contact with the faculty.
Absolutely the right person for me to bring along here today. So thank you very much. And Pablo, just to add in here, you've obviously had all of this experience working with international students. You've been an international student. You've, had quite a close experience with the Faculty of Business. You also work very closely with Mexico's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and other government agencies. And you're currently the president of Global Network Mexico and New Zealand, which is a worldwide association, if I understand.
That's correct. Yeah. The Global Network, or Network MX, it has around 57 chapters. We are based in 27 different countries now. The New Zealand chapter is particularly interesting. We have a very good number of members, but what's most important, we have members who are, very highly qualified. So either doing very well, in their positions, but also, with PhDs and, very kind of successful in research. One of those members, most recently, they published a paper. There was a massive discovery, was the New Zealand Herald in astronomy, in the astronomy field. So that's, you always find these people who are super interesting.
Brilliant.
So I'm part of that.
That's great. So I think, I don't need to sort of say why AUT. I mean, like I said, I've studied AUT, and I can tell this to people that it is absolutely the top 1% of universities worldwide. So it's in that cohort of top 1% universities. There's a lot of accolades that AUT has. It's the number one for global research, impact in New Zealand. It's one of the world's top young universities. It's the top universities for international outlook in New Zealand. What does that actually mean, Pablo? What does it mean that it's the top university for international outlook in New Zealand?
Well, that's, it's international outlook refers as to how we're perceived internationally. So AUT has done particularly well in the QS rankings in, the way we look after our students, student support services, quality of teaching and learning. So all that comes into play when, we're perceived as, the most welcoming and, in terms of the most positive image as a university in international markets. Cool. So we ranked number 1 this year. So that's very cool. That's really
really
cool.
Very cool. I mean, I was a student there, so it'll always be cool for me. So I think, Pablo, what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and go through as many questions as we can, and I'm expecting some of them to be quite hard hitting. And just a disclaimer for those people that are joining us, that if we don't have the answers to your questions, or we think that we don't have the answer just yet, please don't worry, because we will find the answer and come back to you. And we don't have it just yet. We are going to try and get onto all those questions. So I'll let the questions keep building up, but I just need to sort of understand, Pablo. So AUT provides, has got employment support facilities. Can you just talk about it? Because I mean, there's a lot of people that are onshore and they're looking at upskilling right now. And I have personally invited quite a few of our clients to come and attend tonight's session who've got these questions. Some clients will be joining us from offshore because, they were looking at coming here in July intake, but they're stuck now. So I just need to understand, for them, for the market right now to get connected with the industries is really important. So I want to understand for those people, what is the support that AUT offers for that industry connection and employability?
So we have two teams working, full time for our students. One of them is employability and careers. So that is, if you're an AUT student, and even an AUT graduate, so because you can use these services up to 2 years after you finish your degree, you have full access to employability and careers, which essentially they run fairs, they connect with employers, they look at the whole spectrum of how industry is doing, what opportunities are available there. But we also have interns. So AUT interns is a full-time recruitment or job recruitment agency working for our students. So that is directly, connecting our students or graduates to an employer that we have a connection with. So keep in mind as well, Arunima, that we have more than 5,000 industry partners at AUT. This is across all faculties. So in business alone, this is around 750 to 800 partners in industry. Wow. So how do we use those partners, connecting our graduates and students to internship opportunities, but also to full-time employment. Again, employability at AUT has been ranked, given 5 stars out of 5 stars by the QS rankings. And I think that's a big component why we also became top 3 with the top 3 New Zealand universities in the high time education's rankings. So I think we're very proud of how we support our students. My personal case within my Bachelor of Business, my last semester was going into an internship. This was fully facilitated by AUT. So I went into do my internship, did it for 8 weeks full time. By the end of it, I was offered a full-time permanent position. So as soon as I graduated, and got that post-study work visa, I was fully employed. And this is, this happens around 60% of the times. And if not, again, the full machine of interns and AUT careers and employability are there for students.
Cool. No, that's great. So I think what we're going to do is we can see all these questions building up. So I'm going to go through these questions. But Pablo, I want to spend quite a bit of time in talking about the courses that are aligned with the skill shortages in New Zealand. I do know for a fact that there's an increasing number of people that are looking at studying in those courses that align with the skill shortages in New Zealand, whether that's the construction management, or it's the nursing, or it's you've got the primary and the secondary teaching. So I want to spend quite a bit of time on those courses as well. So I'm
Sure.
going to get to these live questions. So we've got a question here which says, the entry criteria for graduate entry criteria and graduate outcomes for PG Dip professional accounting. Does it mean the CPA Australia or the registration requirements in New Zealand?
Yeah, well, so keep in mind that the accounting departments and these postgraduate diplomas and even the professional masters programs, they are recognized, so they're endorsed by the Chartered Accountants New Zealand and whatnot. So there's a number of industry regulators that endorse our degree. So the answer is yes, it does lead to chartered accounting registration.
The next question,
sorry, entry requirements, usually for a postgraduate diploma is a bachelor's degree. Usually we would require that you obtain kind of the equivalent to a B average, but if you don't, we also consider a industry experience. So again, we look at this on a case-by-case basis. It depends on the case.
So we've got this next one, which is a really interesting question. So, with this is something that's happened in the past and it will happen in the future. As immigration tightens screws, a lot of people fall out of the legal status and they go into a Section 61. And, we often work with people who will then consider studying. And we've done some students that have gone back into studying with AUT. So what is AUT's stance on accepting students that are unlawful or that are in the Section 61 space? Will they look at the ability to get a visa before an offer is issued, or would you still give an offer to someone that's unlawful in New Zealand?
We will offer you a place, but the fact is that you cannot study in New Zealand. Sorry, you cannot study at AUT if you actually don't have, a visa that allows you to do so. Yeah. So, if you're under Section 61 and you're waiting for an outcome, during that time, you cannot actually study even though you have a formal offer of place. Right, and we will ask for that. So very important to regain your lawful status before you start studying at AUT.
And I just to add here, we've had people who have either the essential skills work visa didn't go through, or because of things that are changing now that have gone into Section 61, and then we've actually put them into courses. We've actually had a couple of students that we've done with AUT in the last year, where we have been successfully able to do those Section 61 student visas, and they've gone in to study their masters or their grad dips in the courses. So I can see there's a little bit of banter going on there. I'll move on to the questions next. There's a question here from Jatin. It says, I've completed my graduation in BBA, and I'm planning to do a postgraduate diploma in New Zealand. Can you suggest me a course that has high job opportunities? So I think that kind of leads us quite nicely into the whole, I was asking this question offline about the difference between the different business courses, because you've got the MBAS and MBA and the MBM. So I think that leads us quite nicely into that space as well.
The BBA stands, BBA stands for
business from overseas. So this guy is probably from India. He's got a bachelor's of business. So he's got a 3-year degree in business management from India. And he's going to get into higher education in New Zealand.
Right. So look, again, if you're looking at graduate opportunities or postgraduate diplomas, there's so much you can go for. Just keep in mind that a recognized bachelor's degree will allow you to apply for a graduate diploma in different fields, not just business. If it's business what you're interested in, you can literally focus on accounting or global or international business or marketing, or you can really choose the area that you want to focus on. If you're looking outside of business, and you can definitely look at things like communication studies. You can look at computer and information sciences. So I think
there's a wide variety of courses that can get into. Pablo, I'm just going to jump in here and ask you this question. So can you just tell me, because there's 3 specific masters in business courses, and I've struggled with this question for a long time. So the MBAS, which is a master's of business, which has got the research component, I believe. And then we've got the MBA, which I believe is a year and a half or 2 years.
Is 180 points, is a year and a half. Yes.
And then you've got the 1-year master's of business management. That's the MBM, I think.
MBM, correct.
MBM, what is it called? So can you tell me the 3 courses very quickly, please?
Sure. Well, look, we have 3 sort of avenues in terms of master's degrees. So Master of Business is research focused. So essentially will give you sort of a pathway into a PhD, obviously a competitive edge, as you gain a full Master of Business. Very important to gain, quantitative, qualitative research methodology knowledge. But if you're looking for something more practical, something more applied, then we have the professional masters. So we have professional masters in finance, in accounting, in global business, in marketing. And again, this is not research-based programs. These are focused on industry. And then you have the MBA, so the Master of Business Administration, which is more about managing people, understanding, management at the higher levels. And it's very similar to the MBM, which is kind of like a shorter version of the MBA.
So what would be the difference? Do these courses have different entry requirements? So if someone is looking at, standing and saying, okay, well, I want to study a master's in business, what am I going to choose for? What are the different maybe modes of education, or maybe I don't know which ones doesn't have internship, or if they have different entry criteria? Can you just touch upon that, please?
Sure. Look, guys, I think something very important is that every single one of these masters has different entry requirements. And they do have different components. So for example, the Master of Business wouldn't have a component in terms of industry experience, right? Whereas, a professional master's could have a component where, you're actually constantly networking with industry. What's my advice, and I'm going to show you something very, very quickly, is how to use the website. Because the website is an extremely useful tool. It's super easy to use. So usability is unbelievable. And I'm just going to show you here. So I have my screen here. Sure whether you can see it, Aru. But yes, if you go to the front page, you can have study options. And I'm just going to go back again.
I'm going to post the link here, guys, if you can't see this, because I know this software doesn't sort of allow for it. But I'm going to post the link here after as well.
So I'll just to give you a quick idea, I'm not going to go through it. But I do want to show you how the website looks like. And this section right here, is pretty much find your course. When you click on, say, something like business, it will give you all the undergraduate, postgraduate options. And once you click on the ones that you are interested, right away you'll have, the different entry requirements for that course. Yeah. Like, it couldn't be easier than that. Yeah. For me to go through every single one of them we don't
want to do that.
There's no time, but definitely use the website.
I've got students studying in different programs. So I've got students studying the MBA, students studying the MBM, and the students studying the MBUS program. So that's always something that I've been asked, and I try and pass on that information.
I think, Arunima, we can just tell them that the base here is, having a bachelor's degree or equivalent.
Yeah.
Right. A certain grade will help. Industry experience always helps, but it just depends on what specific program they're after.
Cool. And so just to reiterate, because Karan's asked this question, so AUT does provide help with looking for internships, right?
Oh, big time. In fact, the business, this is good case. They do have what we call cooperative education. So we have a dedicated department within the business faculty that essentially connects you with internship opportunities. At the same time, we have internship opportunities overseas. So this is something that we see some international students doing because we have partners in places like New York, like San Francisco, like Vancouver. But that's how strong the links are. Obviously, at the moment with the current situation, let's forget about those. Yeah, you can have your internship here in New Zealand.
That leads me into my next question, which is around scholarships. So I did tell you that there's a lot of onshore people looking at this, and they obviously are wondering if there's any bursaries or scholarships available at AUT.
Sure. Well, look, at the moment, we're reviewing the scholarship offer. The current situation, has obviously demanded that we move fast in this space, that we look at options as to how to support international students who are already in New Zealand. So please, I will keep you up to date with this, Arunima. We might have, a final outcome within 2 weeks or so. So I'm just waiting to hear back from academic office and from the scholarships department.
So watch the space, guys.
But just watch the space. Yeah, please do.
Cool. The next question is around cross credits. So I did ask you about cross credits as well. And I know that obviously with universities and, different tiers of providers in New Zealand. So the next question says that I've done a level 5 and 6 in business and 5 in IT from a college. I assume it's a PTE in Auckland. And if they're looking at getting into a degree program, are they able to get cross credit? So I think just if you can give us a quick overview on the RPL or the cross credit process, how long it takes, and just if it's even a possibility at AUT.
Sure. No, there's definitely a possibility. We have two types of RPL. So one of them is formal, and the formal RPL is based on credits from a different institution. So if you're studying at NZSC or a PT like ICL, we can definitely look at what you've done, and with that, see what we can credit against.
Okay, brilliant.
Then the other option is non-formal RPL. So those of you who are looking at postgraduate options, do keep in mind that it is likely that you can apply for RPL based on your industry experience.
Also, right? Experience can also be used for an RPL.
You could be awarded points for that. What's important here is that the process is quite straightforward, but just keep in mind that in order to engage in this process, first you need to apply, you need to be accepted in the program, and you need to have a formal offer of place, right? So with that in place, then you can action the process is again online. It takes between 10 to 15 working days for an outcome. So it's quite straightforward. I did it myself. In fact, I came from Mexico. I had some credits from another university. I put forward the RPL, and I was awarded a big chunk of my degree. So close to 180 points or something like that. So half the degree was worth.
Approximately about a year and a half is what makes about 180.
Yeah, that was amazing. Obviously, in some PTs we will award recognition of prior learning, but it just depends. This is on a case-by-case basis. For international students, there's no cost, right? So if you have your offer in place, if you have accepted that offer, and you want to go through the process, it costs $0.
Yeah. So I'm going to come back to the questions because I'm itching to ask you and talk about the Masters in Teaching. The Masters in Teaching program, I think it's a one-year Masters. It is quite a unique program that AUT has because I know that most of the programs are either bachelor's degrees or the grad dips that are out there. But AUT offers the degrees as well as the grad dips, but it also offers the Masters in Teaching. Am I correct?
That's right. So we have a number of masters. And well, this is interesting. So for registration, so if you want to register as a teacher, there are 3 pathways at AUT. So 3 programs that allow you to do so. One of them, is the Bachelor of Specialty Teaching. So you can specialize in either primary or early childhood. Then you have the Graduate Diploma in Secondary Teaching. And that's when you can actually work and teach at a secondary school. And then the one that you mentioned here is the masters. There's different masters, but the one that leads to registration is the Master of Teaching and Learning Primary. Right? That's primary school. Yeah. So if you're interested in teaching at the secondary school level, that's only 1 year graduate diploma in secondary teaching. And essentially what you need is a degree in something relevant that you want to teach. I don't know if it's science. It's obviously important that you have a background in science. But again, to get registration is quite straightforward with that.
For the Masters in Primary, Pablo, to get into the Masters in Primary, because I've got someone listening today who's actually looking at doing this in the next intake. So in the Masters in Primary Teaching, do you need to have a background in teaching? Because I've gone to the website and it says that you can actually have any bachelor's degree. You get your QA done, get the 360 credits, level 7, you get your IELTS, and you're eligible. Is there anything?
And that's the thing, Arunima. The requirements are specifically those that you mentioned. So what's stated on the website, that's what AUT admissions will follow.
Okay, so that's perfect. And I think for people that are listening, Masters presents a pretty unique opportunity for them to establish a base here, because there's a lot of people, there are teachers here, there were teachers overseas, or people that are just aspiring to build into those careers that are in the skill shortages. And so, if you go into the Masters, the spouse gets an open work visa. You finish the Masters, you get a 3 years open work visa. Your spouse gets 3 years open work visa. Your kids can continue going to school if they're going to schools here and they're over 5. So it does offer quite a lot of benefits, and the course actually leads to registration. So I think that's that's definitely one of the winners in the skill shortage area.
Not to mention that there's big demand for primary teachers or teachers, in general.
During the regional skill shortage across all around New Zealand.
There you go. Well, there you go. And then master's degree in general, having a master's degree, it looks amazing in your CV. I remember after obtaining my master's, I did apply for a job at AUT, but I applied to other 5 jobs. I was called from all 5 potential employers. Decided to stay at AUT, but it looks really, really good in your CV.
Yeah. So I'm going on to the next question here. It says, can English language requirement be waived off for those that have vast work experience and have studied throughout English medium back in the home country? So say you have someone from, I think for a lot of the countries, we have a few clients, that are interested in studying, and they're from South Africa. We have quite a few clients that are from India. So if someone has done an overseas qualification, all in English, they've had a vast work experience working with good corporates, and they're looking at studying, is there an opportunity for that English language testing to be waived off?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what I would advise is that once you identify what you want to study, you do submit an application, because that assessment is made only by admissions, right? So to waive the requirements, that's only admissions can make that decision. And for them to make a decision, they need to have an application in place. So all the facts, all the relevant information in place. But we've seen cases where the English requirement has been waived. And for obvious reasons, people working, for many years in industry in New Zealand, in Australia, in South Africa, in the United States, and whatnot, evidently they speak English at a very high level.
Mm. We've got the next question here, Pablo, from Gary. Now, I know Gary's brother is wanting to come here. If it wasn't for the lockdown, he would have been here for the July intake, because I think we've got an offer letter for him already. So he's wanting to know what happens to him. Can he actually start studying offshore online before we actually get the visa sorted? How does it work?
Oh, absolutely. So basically, he can start as soon as July. The vast majority of the programs that we offer are now available online, and they're available online specifically for offshore international students, or international students who, wanted to come semester 2, but they couldn't travel because of COVID-19. Let me, if I can, I cannot type in here, but I have the URL to the website that actually lists the entire range of things that you can do. So pretty much this includes all 5 faculties.
Yeah, if you can send that link to me, I can then make sure that I pass it on, because this course that his brother's coming to study is actually only 1 year, and that's my question.
Yep.
So I think Gary, I can come
What's
back.
What's the course again?
Sorry.
Do you know what the course is? What is?
It's a master's in food science or health science, or master's in science, something like that.
Right. Okay.
I'm not
specific.
sure. So I'll just type it in here because I don't remember it top of my head.
What we'll do, Arunima, as soon as we finish this call, I'll send you the URL. That will take you straight to the list.
Brilliant. So we've got the next one here, which Jentin is asking. Hi, Masters in Health strands is available in how many years? So they just want to know what strands are available for Masters in Health and how many years is the course. I think that's what they're trying to say. I'm not too sure.
Okay, well, Masters of Health, there are many different areas in health. So you have the Master of Health Science, and then you can sort of choose a specific specializations, right? Once again, it is likely that it will not lead to registration. So for example, a master in, health science, if you want to focus on nursing, it will not lead to registration in nursing, right? In fact, a lot of the papers that you take, you have to have a background or being a certified, a registered nurse. It usually takes 2 years. So a Master of Health Science, from what I can remember, is 240 points. So that'd be 2 years full time. Do check the range of health science degrees. So if your background is in health science, then please do look at the different options, because you're likely to from masters that actually leads to registration.
Yeah.
Right? So in nursing, we do have a pathway.
May I please request, if someone from AIMS Global is watching this, to please send those links in those comments to those people, please, while they're listening. I know my team is here, so they will just get onto those links, Pablo. Now, I think that takes me quite nicely into the nursing courses. I know that there's a range of health sciences and nursing courses available at AUT, and there's obviously quite a lot of interest in health sciences. I know there's midwifery as well. But can you just take us through very quickly the courses that are available for nursing, and if there's any master's programs that lead to registration in the nursing field?
So for registration, there's two pathways: the Bachelor of Health Science in Nursing, but also the Master of Nursing Science. So those are the only two pathways to registrations. There are, I think, another 3 masters and postgraduate diplomas that are specific to the nursing field, sort of like advanced practice, but those are specifically designed for already registered nurses. So if what you're seeking is registration, is either the Bachelor in Health Nursing major or the Master of Nursing Science.
Okay, well, that's definitely a unique program, because that's definitely not offered at many other places, the masters, because often you'll have these nurses coming from overseas, and they may either not meet the registration requirements, they may not have the work experience, but then they've got partner and kids and they're looking at registration. And so often, getting through any other courses that don't lead to the children going to school it can be a problem, and then they are forced to kind of switch careers. So the master's office, if that offers registration opportunities, that would be quite a perfect pathway.
Yeah, absolutely, and we offer it because of that. It's just that's the main purpose, is to offer people the opportunity to register in the field. Just keep in mind that the health science, specifically clinical degrees, not just nursing, but podiatry and physiotherapy, but they're in high demand. The demand for people in the health sector, clinical placements and jobs in the clinical health sector continue to grow. So
Yes.
if this is a really good chance for you to gain registration and work as a nurse.
The other question, Pablo, that I want to ask you, it hasn't been asked here, but because I've kind of dealt with AUT for such a long time, and that's something that I've seen with universities, where these students come in to do master's courses, and say, for example, if they're a year and a half or 2 years masters, and is there an opportunity for them to transition into the postgrad? Because one thing that I've seen is that if you come in for the masters, and God forbid that if you fail or you don't pass, it's always it's quite a tricky situation for the student. So, one of the things that I've said is that try and sort of aim for the qualification that you will absolutely complete. So if someone's come in for a year and a half, 2-year masters, is there an opportunity for them to transition into the postgrad dip before the completion of the masters? How does that work?
Usually it's the other way around. So usually, they, for example, what I've seen very recently is a student wanting to do masters, but because the student didn't meet the master's degree requirements, what we offer them was a postgraduate diploma, right? But upon completion of the diploma, they would be able to cross-credit the diploma and then finish with a master's, right? Say, imagine a master's of 240 points. In this particular case, the student could start with 60 or 120 points postgraduate diploma, and those 120 points could be cross-credited towards the master's. So by the time the student finished the postgrad diploma, then they only had to complete a 1-year master's degree. So what I advise everyone is that aim for the highest degree that you want to go for, because the program leader, the registrar of each school, will provide you with options as to how to get there. In some cases, it's very straightforward. In some cases, you meet direct entry. But if you don't meet the direct entry requirements, they will definitely advise you as to how to get there the quickest way.
Yeah. And I think what I want to add here is that I know for a fact that there is the reverse of this that works as well. So if you have enrolled from masters, and I'm going to put my immigration hat on when I'm advising this as well. So if someone is enrolled for masters, but along the way they realize that, either I haven't passed, so I can't get on with the masters because I don't have the B+, or I actually want to stop with the PG, you can apply for a variation of conditions to switch into the postgrad from the masters, but the variation can only be done before your master's is complete. So you can't decide, well, I've finished my master's, I've now failed a few papers, so I'll give me a postgrad and now get me an open work visa. The change of the course to move into a lower level needs to happen before the course is complete through a variation. So I think that's what I wanted to just touch on, where you can move from a PG to a master's, but then also master's and be conservative and come back to a PG if someone thinks that they can't get through the master's. So, Pablo, do you want to add anything in there, or does that sort of what I've just said covers that?
Yeah, well, look, I can see the immigration side of it, and how important sometimes is to go for a master's, because I mean, a master's degree allows your partner as well, right, to work full time to get that work visa. Again, in some cases, and that's why we offer, the quickest path. Say, okay, if you cannot start with a master's, at least, start with 6 months, with a conditional visa. So sort of we have offered conditional places where people start with a, postgraduate diploma in business. And then, that conditional offer leads to the master's. So Immigration New Zealand knows that.
Offer in such a situation would be on what do you mean a conditional offer? Because normally conditional we've seen could be on provision of some documents or the English test. So someone could actually start studying on a conditional offer. I don't get that.
Yeah, this is quite a unique case. But say, for instance, a student who wants to do a master's degree, right, doesn't meet the requirements. So therefore, it starts with a postgraduate diploma, right? So what we've done before to make it easier as well, immigration-wise, is to offer the postgraduate diploma, so formal offer, and also a condition that will lead and entitle that student to move into the master's degree after completing certain points.
So that leads to my next question that I've got in my head. Is to say, we're obviously looking at these onshore people that are within New Zealand. They are looking at upskilling, economy is tight, situation's quite tight at this stage. So if they have done their postgrad diploma, say from another provider in New Zealand, so a PG dip in business management, and they are looking at transitioning into a master's in one of the master's programs, is there an opportunity? I know you've talked about it, but there is an opportunity for them to apply for cross credits, and instead of doing like the whole 2 years masters, only do the balance of it after the cross credits. That's an option and a pathway for those people.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, honestly, if you have relevant qualifications at the same level, and you want it to be recognized, apply. So don't even hesitate in applying for recognition of prior learning, because it happens more often than you think. So please, it's a case-by-case basis, but it's something that I would strongly advise everyone here who thinks on doing it to go for it.
Yeah. And those of you that I haven't said this earlier and they didn't know, we are one of the authorized partners with AUT. We have been for about 14, 12, I can't even remember for how long, for a very long
many years.
Longer. It's a very, very long time. And we've done a lot of work with AUT. We've had a lot of students that have studied there, they've graduated, they're now residents. And I think I continue to sort of, have a very strong faith in the system, the support that AUT provides. There's RPL, and so we are often doing these RPL for students. We're putting these applications in. Just before we move away from the RPL, how long is the RPL process, just for us to be able to plan for the July intake?
It takes 10 to 15 working days to be approved, to have an outcome.
And how long is the admission process, like the whole assessment process for admission?
Well, admissions are working, around the clock at the moment. So there's a lot of applications happening. So a lot of resources now employed. So admissions, they're working, full on at the moment. They're doing things very quickly for the July intake. So students can still apply to the July intake.
So the students won't come in because the borders are closed, but they can continue studying overseas like we talked. Is that right?
Correct. And look, I mean, for that case that you mentioned, students don't even need a visa, right? So they couldn't travel.
What happens in the situation, Pablo, where they've started studying, they've paid the fees, I assume, upfront, and God forbid they don't get a visa. What happens in such a situation? Or the borders don't open in time because nobody knows when the borders are actually going to open. So say someone's got a 1-year course and they've done 6 months already, and they're supposed to be here for the next 6 months, but they can't. What happens to the fees, or what happens to when the visa is not done? What's the provision then?
Well, if the student is offshore, they don't need a visa to study at AUT, so they can just pay their fees. The tuition fees at the moment, they are still the same, so nothing has been changed around that. Things are moving very, very quickly. But what we have done is to keep it as simple as possible for everyone, in the sense that students who couldn't come back because of the border closure, they're allowed to study from overseas online without the need of a visa.
Yeah.
Once the borders open, then we'll reevaluate situations. They will need a visa to enter the country and study.
What happens to new students? So what happened to someone who's never enrolled with AUT, would eventually need to be here on a student visa, so they would need a visa because they want to get their post-study. So what happens to that student? Because someone that's continuing studying is fine, but what happens to a new student?
It's the same process. So a new student can apply, can start studying, this semester. No need for a visa. Just needs to, study at AUT. They can study part-time as well. So this is something that we're allowing international students offshore to do, to study part-time. This, as you know, is not allowed, for onshore students.
And when they want to transition later on, to say they want to come here in the Feb intake, they can just finish the rest of the course here in New Zealand?
Correct.
And if the visa doesn't get granted,
correct.
What happens to the refund?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think we're going far too way ahead of. This is all new for all of us.
We'll connect with you we'll connect with you offline on this, because that's something that a lot of these people would want to know before they start studying. So we will come back to you guys, because you've asked. There's about 3 people that have asked that question, so we'll come back to you on those. So I think that sort of covers those kind of questions. Another course that I really want to touch on, Pablo, is the construction management course. Obviously, New Zealand's got all these projects on infrastructure that are going on, and there's an increasing demand in the construction infrastructure stage. There's a master's in construction management, which I believe is quite a popular course. Can you please talk about that course with us, and the career outcomes of that, and how long it takes?
Sure. I mean, look, very practical master's degree. So just keep in mind that we have built new premises at AUT. So the newest building at AUT is the engineering building. So in fact, all the testing labs and construction laboratories are based on that building. We have actually the thickest wall, and we have earthquake testing labs. We have a shaking table. So this is kind of like a mecca for people who are wanting to specialize, in master's degree projects in the construction area. From what I can recall, the Master of Construction Management is 180 points. So that'll be a year and a half full time. I'm not too sure whether you have different information, but once again, we can check against the website. But usually these masters are 180 points. Very, very practical, very hands-on, and there's always a research component to them. So you can sort of look at an area that you want to really investigate and focus on that.
So the 2 main intakes for AUT are the Feb and the July intake, right?
Correct.
And so with a lot of people that are currently on the epidemic notice, because of that, they are the visas are expiring on the 25th of September, and they might look at studying again. Is there a November intake at all for any of the courses, or is Feb the next intake for AUT University?
For new students, it's usually February, July. Postgraduate degrees, in some cases, they offer an intake in October, but certainly not November or December.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I don't know from an immigration perspective what you advise, but my view is that they should do everything.
What I'm telling people is that if they're, the main intake is February, and if your visa is expiring in September and you are looking for a February intake, we can do a visitors for a couple of months and then apply for students, so that you can remain in the country lawfully, but then you can also make that February intake. We can't apply for a student visa in September for a February intake because that's too far away, but we can facilitate it through a bridging kind of visitors situation, which we've done over a number of years for clients. So I think just to wrap this up, because there's a lot of questions we've asked you, and I apologize if there've been too many, but there's just, so many questions. So guys, I know that there's a lot of questions that we haven't been able to get to, but we are going to individually respond to you guys. And if you don't know the answers, I'm going to reach out to Pablo to get those answers and come back to you. But just a couple of things just to wrap this up. One, AUT does offer cross credits, so that's a myth that it doesn't. It's obviously case by case. And I think, if you can think of a course and you can think of an industry, AUT University would have it. So, we would strongly encourage that you consider it. It's got very strong industry relationships. There's a lot of support to connect students to providers. And like Pablo said, there's over 5,000, did you say 5,000 partners?
More than 5,000 industry partners in place today.
That's
across
right.
all faculties.
Yeah. And those of you that are within New Zealand or that are offshore, I mean, use this time when you're losing your jobs, when the labor market is tight, to use this time sensibly to upskill yourself, get into those qualifications and those skills where you possibly wanted to, but you came into the wrong course when you came into the country. And, just to be able to get ready for the workforce when things do settle down. Pablo, do you want to add anything else in there that I may have missed?
Yeah, well, look, we're here to help. I mean, Arunima, anything you need, please do send us those questions. I can see that there are very specific questions. So yeah, we're here to help. Keep in mind that we work very closely. The senior leadership team at AUT is in constant communication with Immigration New Zealand. So we're trying to get those answers as soon as we can. But a lot of the answers obviously depends on the New Zealand government, and we rely on that as well. Other than that, guys, I think do inquire about RPL. Don't feel afraid to apply. You can apply at any time. It costs nothing, but and the process is super simple. If you do it through Arunima, even better. So
absolutely do it. That's the reason why we're doing this session. And I think with the July intake sort of coming close by, we want to try and sort of get people thinking about these things now. So Pablo, look, I thank you very, very much on behalf of all of us at Ames Global for doing this for us and giving us all of this information. And I'm sure we'll have you back at some stage.
For sure. No worries. Pleasure. And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much for joining us.
All right.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
All the best.